Welcome to the Motormouth YouTube channel. I'm Zach.
I'm Andrea.
And we do full-length car reviews each and every week, and halfway through we stop for a segment called Questions, Coffee, and Cars. We've spun it off and we're way up there now, Andrea. This is episode 54. How do you get a question in?
Follow along on Instagram at Motormouth_Andrea. Every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time, I put a post out. And once we gather our questions, the post is deleted and we start the show.
Time now for questions, coffee, and cars.
Your questions from Instagram.
Do you think most car companies would change the battery position instead of under the vehicle for electric vehicles? I don't think it's possible because the battery is so big. I mean, it takes up space from the front to the rear, and then you would just take up passenger space within the vehicle.
The other thing is it is the most, it's the heaviest thing that's in the car is the battery. Batteries are very, very expensive. So when you start lifting them away from the floor and putting them where, an engine would be, you don't have a lot of room there because you have to have room for the front electric motor. Yeah. Same thing at the back and the trunk, you have to have room for the rear electric motor. It's really the only place you could do it. And if you lift it up the floor, then you make the interior space smaller. So
that's right.
They have to just do a better job of protecting it from the bottom.
Yeah, like Tesla did with titanium covers to protect the battery, something really quite strong. So if there is any impact, the battery is protected. Just wondering if you folks want to weigh in on these new scandals affecting Toyota, GM, and Dodge Ram. Okay, so we'll start first with this. Toyota has issued recalls for a total of nearly 2.5 million vehicles in 2023, citing various defects that pose safety risks. So you are right.
I just want to say one thing about when you hear big numbers like this. So when you have a million or 2 million or 3 million vehicles, you got to remember that a brand like Toyota sells a lot of cars. Yeah. And when you do multiple years, it adds up to be a big number. So it's not that hard for a company to have a massive recall, just based on the number they sell.
Now, remember, they also launched a lot of new vehicles. So I don't have a problem necessarily with recalls. If they have a plan in place to fix these, then recalls do happen. However, they are frustrating, especially when you have a new vehicle. So 1 million vehicles due to a defect that may prevent airbags from deploying. Other recalls on various models for different reasons, including the RAV4 Prime, due to the risk of the hybrid system shutting down, installing while driving in EV mode in cold weather conditions if the accelerator is rapidly pressed. Also, 2022 to 2023 Tundra, same year for the Corolla Cross, 2023 Camry, and also other 2023 Toyota Lexus models.
So the airbag one is important because that could really affect if you're in an accident. Yeah. So that is a sensor on the passenger seat. You're probably not aware that there's a sensor in the passenger seat that detects, I'm trying to remember the weight now off the top of my head, I can't remember. It's a certain weight. And the reason why it's there is if you have a child sitting in the seat, you actually don't want the airbag to go off because the impact from the airbag can be worse than surviving the crash based on the structure of the vehicle. Yeah. So that switch or that sensor wasn't detecting when a full-grown person was sitting in the seat and the airbag wasn't going off. So that's one they can bring it in, they can check it, they can replace it. That one's not too hard to do.
I think we can all agree that recalls can be inconvenient, especially when it's a new vehicle like many of these Lexus and Toyota models. Some recalls are more serious than others, of course, but they need to be addressed. They protect you and others on the road, and that's what makes them so important.
When you get a recall for your vehicle, it is something you need to get addressed. It's free, doesn't cost you anything. No. Make an appointment with the dealer and get it taken in. The Stellantis, is that the one you're doing next?
Next, Chevrolet has stopped sales of the new Blazer EV due to numerous software problems. I actually don't disagree with this one. If the Blazer is having issues, you're better off to do a stop sale. Otherwise, you're just going to have a lot of disappointed customers.
Yeah, apparently it's software. This seems to be the big bugaboo for most EV manufacturers. I know Volkswagen had a lot of issues when the ID4 initially came out, and they had to do many software updates. So yeah, it's at its infancy at General Motors for this new Ultium platform. So the Lyriq has been out, but very low volumes. Blazer has just been introduced and a stop sale.
Yeah.
So hopefully they can get on top of it.
And we've seen stop sales with other manufacturers. I don't know if you remember but when the Volkswagen Taos came out, they also had a stop sale. They wanted to get on top of some of the issues it was having. So I think it's better to get on top of it if you know you're aware of it than to continue selling them. Same with Cadillac. Didn't the Lyric have an issue as well?
Yeah, the car we're sitting in, Andrea, had a stop sale for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
So we have a diesel, and when the whole diesel scandal broke out, they weren't allowed to sell these vehicles for 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And I was knocking at the dealer going, when can you sell me one? And then when it was cleared for sale, and they fixed it, and they did, we bought it. So that's good to know. Now this next one.
Yeah, the Cummins diesel.
That's what I was trying to do, Andrea. It's like a nice segue into diesel.
Accused of installing devices on Dodge Ram trucks which can bypass or defeat emissions controls affecting 330,000 model year 2019 to 2023 Ram 2500 and 3500 pickup trucks. I just wanted to double check that. I thought it was even higher. I pulled some numbers this morning. Cummins will pay almost $1.7 billion a fine for Ram pickup diesel emissions. The devices were allegedly installed on 630,000 engines in 2013 to 2019. Ram 2500 and 3500 pickups. This is according to the Justice Department.
Okay, so that is not the V6. That's the eco diesel that's in the Ram 1500. That's the good old inline 6-cylinder Cummins in the heavy duty trucks.
Yeah.
So what we're seeing here is a common theme through the auto industry with diesel engines and defeat software. And there was one, I'm not saying this is the case, but Bosch was implicated as well. We actually got a check from Bosch
for our A7.
For our old Audi A7. So the issue obviously was one of these situations in the diesel world was like, oh, we'll fix that. Oh yeah, it passes. So they were all up to it. Volkswagen got caught with it. Mercedes-Benz got caught with it. BMW quietly stopped making diesels, and
so did Mercedes-Benz.
That's what I said. Mercedes got caught in Germany. People were arrested in head office.
But not here so much.
Yeah, it was a big deal in Germany.
Yeah.
And now we're seeing this. So
I think it's really disappointing that this is now coming up.
Again.
You know, it dates back to 2013 when they were all
That's
fully
a huge fine. It is
massive.
a almost $2 billion fine. Huge. Plus, there's going to be a class action lawsuit. Plus, they're going to have to pay to get all of the vehicles fixed.
Yep.
Plus, they're going to have to pay owners compensation like they did with Volkswagen.
Yeah.
It's going to be huge. Or if they can't fix them, they have to buy them back. So this is going to be a big old headache for Stellantis.
Which was the case with some Volkswagen models. Your dad had one.
Yeah, they sold it back.
And they had to buy it back.
Yeah.
After 40 years together, I'm told I may need a mid-cycle refresh. Should I get a new grill? Or just be happy we have another 40 years of marriage ahead? This is what I say, Jeff. She stayed with you for 40 years. I don't think you need a new grill. I think you're good.
Yeah, she's not shopping in the used lot for something with a little less miles on it. I think you're good to go.
Lot.
You know what you do? You could do a mid-cycle refresh and book a nice vacation somewhere together.
Yeah, spot up.
Celebrate the 40 years. Go somewhere nice. That's what I say. I think that's great. Mid-cycle refresh.
I love it. I love it. No, you don't need a new grill.
If you saw me New Year's morning,
he needed a new grill.
Oh my goodness.
It was a rough morning. He walked downstairs and I was like, are you okay? First off, I had to go over everything that he said and did the night before. And he's like, are you sure I said that?
Yeah, so we went to a house party at our neighbor's house and I was ready to rock. I had a big gin and tonic before we walked across. And I had a good time. Andrea said I had a good time.
He had a really good time.
And the next day,
I had a great time. I just wasn't feeling
My
awful.
dad phoned me 3 times on New Year's Day to wish me Happy New Year's. I called him on the 2nd. I phoned him in the car. I said, sorry I couldn't call you yesterday. I was so hungover. So it was ugly.
He was dying for a McDonald's, first off.
All I wanted was an Egg McMuffin.
Yeah.
So I tell you what, I could have used a mid-cycle refresh that day.
He needed a new grill that day, but after a good night's sleep, he's okay.
I'm okay
right?
now, yeah.
Andrea and Zach, love your show. Thank you. Would you get a BMW X1 or spend a little bit more for the X3 that looks made with more quality and refinement?
They're very different. I mean, the X1 is definitely more tossable and fun and kind of go-kart like. The one thing I always bring up with the X1 is it shares the same platform with the Mini Countryman. And Mini, along with BMW, puts a big premium on handling, and it just is so much fun to drive. It's got 241 horsepower. It blasts along. It's very tossable. The X3 is a little more traditional.
Well, I was a little bit surprised about the X3, how much softer the suspension is from what I remember when we reviewed it. I guess it was about a year ago now we reviewed the X3. The X1 I think is just terrific, but it doesn't offer the space that the X3 offers. And for those who really like comfort level of a vehicle, maybe you would prefer the X3. I think that BMW did a great job with the X1, especially the interior of the X1. Here's something about the X1. Everything is now done in the screen. So it is something that you need to get used to. The X3, I'm sure it's going to get a redesign or a big refresh soon. It still is kind of the old system. So if you prefer that,
The
you
buttons.
might, yeah.
If you like the buttons and the iDrive controller. What's interesting is the second row seat of the X1 is very roomy and close to the X3. What you lose out on is cargo space. So you have to basically balance out what
and
you're
width, a little bit of width.
what you're going to use it for.
Thanks for the great series. Thank you. My struggle is shopping around for balance of fuel economy versus highway driving. For example, could a Tiguan manage 4 adults and stuff on a drive to Whistler, or am I better with an Atlas Cross Sport? I think that that's a really good idea. I think it depends how many times you're going up to the mountain. You will struggle in the Tiguan.
Listen,
you're
Andrea.
going to pay more for the Atlas Cross Sport.
Yeah, but the Tiguan is smaller, and it has basically the same engine.
It has the same engine.
So it's detuned. I think it's 186, right?
184
184
horsepower and 221 pound-feet of torque.
Yeah, Atlas is...
269 horsepower and 273
But it's
pound-feet
way
of
bigger.
torque.
It's way bigger.
It is bigger.
I would say that the Tiguan might surprise you, that it's going to be fine. It doesn't have as much power, but it's also a lot smaller.
It's a lot smaller. It's less money than the Cross Sport. Highway, you're going to get better fuel economy with the Tiguan. 8 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway, or 29 miles per gallon. And the Cross Sport, 9.2 liters per 100 kilometers on the highway, 26 miles per gallon. I think if you are going to Whistler a lot with a family of 4 loaded with stuff, you're going to find the Cross Sport more comfortable
And bigger,
for you.
more stuff.
But, you know, the thing is, if you just stay in the right lane,
Take your time.
take your time with the Tiguan, you're just fine. I think it's really about expectations.
Andrea, I used to drive up to Whistler in an old Volkswagen bus.
That's what I'm saying. It's
You
all
can get
about
there.
expectations.
Andrea used to drive up to Squamish and Whistler with her Dodge Colt. That had like, what did we look it up the other day?
Power. I don't know. It was like 70 horsepower or something
Listen,
like that.
That new Tiguan has been vastly improved with drivability, especially around the automatic.
Yeah.
So if the Atlas is kind of outside your budget, then get the Tiguan.
But if you're looking
And
for
go and see Mark at Vancouver Volkswagen.
He's so great. That's where we ordered our GTI from, which we're still waiting, Mark. But he says it has left Germany. It's on the move. Yay. Happy New Year. Happy New Year. Is it recommended to buy a used hybrid? What's the difference between regular maintenance on a used hybrid compared to gas? And what are some unexpected costs? Well, the thing about a hybrid and a gas model, the maintenance is actually very similar.
Except for
regen braking on the hybrid. You don't have to change the brake pads as much. Now, there are reports that if you have more extensive repairs on the hybrid, that it will cost you a little bit more.
Listen,
but overall, I wouldn't be concerned about buying a used hybrid at all.
Study after study after study comes out on the most reliable vehicles. And in the last few years, all of these studies have come out and said hybrids are the most reliable. And a big part of that is it's dominated by one main company, that's Toyota. And the least, so that category of vehicles, hybrids, the most reliable. Buying a used hybrid is a great idea. The least reliable category of vehicles was, Andrea? Guess.
I don't know what.
EVs. And it all came into all of the advanced technology. And that's one of the problems with some EVs is they put all of the advanced technology in the new shiny EV, things like silly door handles and all touch screens. And that's one of the problems.
But also keep in mind, these are new vehicles. I mean, you see a launch of a new vehicle, whether it's a gas model, a hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, or an electric vehicle. They tend to have issues at the start that manufacturers have to work out. So EVs are new. So it does make sense.
Used hybrid, no problem. And you're going to have to budget to get the maintenance done, but brake jobs won't be as often.
Interestingly enough, I was speaking with a manufacturer about plug-in hybrids. They were telling me not only are they expensive to make, but more complicated because you've got an electric motor and you have a gas engine. So there's just more involved with plug-in hybrids. But I would never be concerned about buying a used one. Just do your due diligence. Love your coverage. Thanks so much for being our auto advocates. Thank you for the nice comment. Do you find that brand loyalty still exists among car buyers? Back in the day, Grandma used to only buy a Chevy. Do shoppers now jump around looking for best deals, features with little regard for the manufacturer? I think so. I think that people are on a tighter budget and they're trying to find the most value. You will always have loyal buyers to a certain brand. My brother-in-law is one of them. He will never buy anything but a Toyota. That is just the way he is. He will not look elsewhere.
I remember the former CEO of Stellantis or Chrysler back then.
Yeah.
He said to get people to change out of a full-size pickup truck to go from a Ram to a Chevy or from a Chevy to a Ford takes dynamite. He said getting full-size pickup truck owners to change brand is almost impossible.
Wow. They're just so devoted to the brand.
So Chevy buyers will buy Chevys,
Yeah.
Ram and Ford. Okay, take pickup trucks out of the situation. I think it comes down to age, Andrea. I think people that, like, we're Gen X and older, we grew up in the era of cars being really unreliable, you know, back in the day. Cars nowadays are much, much more reliable. So the new younger people coming in, especially the millennials who are now getting married and buying their first home, they're just shopping the market for the best deal. Older buyers still have those, I'm not going to buy that because they were unreliable way back in the day. And those things stick with you.
And I think that's exactly it. Say you're a new buyer, you only have $30,000 to spend. You're going to look at everything that offers you the most value for your money. It makes sense. Now, there was a point, and it still is, but worse, before other manufacturers had also increased their prices, Honda started coming out with these new vehicles, from the Civic to the Accord, HRV, and we really, went after them for their pricing. They still are charging a premium for their vehicles. And so Zach and I were saying, who's going to buy a Honda at this price point? Well, viewers wrote in and they said, I love Honda. I will never look elsewhere. So I think it does depend on age.
Yeah.
It does depend how loyal you are to the brand. And sometimes a brand that you're used to that gives you a lot of confidence, whether it's the all-wheel drive system, the safety features, reliability, it really depends what is number one on your list, your needs and your wants.
Okay, one of the things is we always talk about, why do they market these cars to young people who can't afford to buy them?
I know.
And we bring that one up a lot. But the thing you've got to remember, it's very, very, very important for a car company to get a young person to buy their model as their very first car.
Yeah.
For example, if you bought a Kia and it was your very first new car and you had a great time with that car, you are now way more likely to go and buy another one and another one or another one. And then what your parents drove also greatly influences
For sure.
Your purchase decisions. For example, our kids, we have a Honda Civic that they drive. Do you think they're going to be open to owning a Honda in the future? Oh, hell yeah.
For sure.
Because it's been a good car.
Has had no issues at all. Our son likes driving it. In fact, his friends get in the car with him and they're like, oh my God, this is such a great car. For me, when I buy a vehicle, it's really about driving pleasure. So I wouldn't say that reliability is number one on our list. We're really interested in German brands because of the way that they drive. But I do understand if reliability is kind of a number one concern for you, that you would turn to Toyota or Honda. So I get it. And then there's value. I have people say that they've always driven a Toyota or they've always driven a Honda, and now they're looking at Kia and Hyundai because of the value and the extra features and just how modern their interiors are. They're definitely ahead of the time when it comes to their interiors.
A lot of it comes down to one big thing is that's resale value, and brands like Subaru do very well with resale value.
Yep.
So if you buy a Subaru, you like it, and you get a lot of money when you go to sell it, are you going to probably buy another one?
For sure.
For sure.
Yeah. And that's it for us. Another questions, coffee, and cars. Get your questions in. Follow along on Instagram at motormouth_Andrea. I put a post out every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Pacific time. Once we gather our questions, the post is deleted and we start the show. Thanks for watching.
See you then.